What is good, YouTube? My name is Velikan. In this video, we are taking a look at the Tier 5 relics for League 6 Demonic Pacts for Oldschool Runescape, and we are starting with Nature's Accord. If you would pick Nature's Accord, you will be granted the Fairy Mushroom. Some effects when you have Nature's Accord: farming patches and plants no longer have any level requirements to harvest, plant, or make. That's really strong. Additionally, you gain the following perks to farming. You will receive 10x the yield from all farming patches, and it will automatically be noted. Experience is granted for the 10x yield as well. Your plants will never die. You have a 20% chance not to use a seed or a sapling. And then you will gain the Fairy Mushroom, which will allow you to teleport to any Fairy Ring, Spirit Tree, or Tool Leprechaun. Very cool. So, Nature's Accord initially strikes me as a farming solve, but maybe that's in Zaya only. Outside of Zaya, farming training is mostly done through trees, and the trees, you get the most experience when you check their health, and that does not get buffed. So I would be careful calling this a farming solve if you aren't in Zaya. The only thing this relic really does is it lets you save 20% of your saplings, and it lets you plant high level trees at level 1. So it isn't bad, but maybe it's not the easiest farming solve that you had in mind if you don't go Zaya. Moving on, if you are in Zaya, the 10x yield works at Tithe Farm. So I was searching the Discord on experience rates because some people are saying you can get 200 mil in a few hours. Unfortunately, I literally cannot find the numbers. What I do know about Tide Farm though is you get bonus experience from dropping 75 fruits in, and in Tide Farm, the 10x yield kind of means like an x15 multiplier in experience. So I know the main game Tithe Farm, or at least according to the OSRS wiki, is around 100k experience per hour. Then if you do that x16 and then about x15, you're looking at around 24 million experience per hour. But the 100k base game, main game experience is probably way higher because you don't need to water and they can't die. So I think you're way over 30 million experience per hour with Nature's Accord in Zaya, right? I don't know how much more you're going to go over 30 mil experience per hour, but I think it's over 40 actually. And those are some, like, I've seen some people on Discord that have been saying these numbers, but they can't back them up with math. So I am not quite sure what the Tithe Farm Nature's Accord experience per hour is going to be, but somewhere along this ballpark. Um, some people are calling it a free 200 mil. You should consider that like even a couple of hours of Tithe Farm in a temporary game mode is not that fun. So keep that in mind. Know what you're signing up for is what I'd say. Then the 10x yield means enough herbs and secondaries so you can solve herb lore either normally or through mastering mixology. Keep in mind though that if you are a tier 2 friendly forager, that would be way better for potions as well. So if you're looking to overload into Nature's Accord, you might want to consider overloading into friendly forager instead. Granted, that will not solve your farming. So that's about that's the dynamic between Nature's Accord and friendly forager. Sorry. Then, one important thing, this relic doesn't instantly mature crops. For some reason, I initially thought that it would. That's because some old relics that are similar to Nature's Accord do instantly mature crops, and Nature's Accord does not. So don't get mistaken by misremembering old relics, right? Then, of course, teleports to fairy rings, spirit trees, and tool leprechauns as well. That might be interesting, but keep in mind, the tier 3 has teleports that overlap with these. So tier 3 takes you close to fairy rings as well. Of course, if you go map of alacrity, which will take you close to agility shortcuts, maybe the teleports from Nature's Accord aren't that strong. That said, the tool leprechauns are kind of unique teleports because you typically cannot get to them easily. So what I would advise you to do is check your regions and then look at this wiki link. I will post that in the video description below to search for teleports that are really unique to you. Granted, I don't think the teleports are a reason to pick Nature's Accord. Then, Larcenist. You will gain the following benefits while thieving: 100% success rate in all actions, automatically re-pickpocket, automatically re-steal from stall, Items obtained from pickpocketing and stalls are noted. Stalls never deplete. Guards will never catch you. And then the amount of coin pouches you can carry is 10x. You will receive 10x loot while thieving, and that's from pickpocketing and stalls, and stealing house valuables in Varlamore. Very cool. Obvious thieving solve. It's quite simple. There are some other thieving solves in the game. There's Pyramid Plunder in the Desert. There's Varlamore, stealing valuables. And I think any solve really, even like Ardy Knights, is good enough for 99 thieving. That said, Larcenist turns it into a free 50 mil. And with certain areas, it's a free 200 mil, or at least an AFK one. So Larcenist, what you really should be looking at is the 10x loot, in my opinion. It is insane in Taranwin because you can solve smithing and crafting that way. It is really good in Kandarin for clues. So if you're thinking of skipping conniving clues and you want the points from the tasks, maybe if you're in Kandarin, then Larcenist is interesting to you. We have talked about clues and Kandarin in the tier 4 relic video, by the way. Mauritania for Vyres, that will give you blood shards. It says blood gems on the sheet, but it's supposed to say blood shards. And very good experience as well. And then there is one thing to be said, that if you are going to Asgarnia or Fremennik, you have ice gloves available to you, and you can then pickpocket Tsar. And pickpocketing Tsar isn't the best experience per hour, but it's fully AFK, because it will not overflow your inventory, as you will not be pickpocketing coin pouches, but Tokkul, and that stacks infinitely. I think Asgarnians can kill the Ice Queen for the gloves, and Fremenniks apparently get a pair for free in their bank once they unlock the region. Then Soul Harvest. The active effect with Soul Harvest is while harvesting any farming crop, or when NPCs would drop bones or ashes, you will instead harvest stackable soul shards. Soul shards can be used for the following. They can be used in place of a pure essence while trading runecraft, and then 100 of them can be sacrificed in the Liberation Bowl at the Tiamat for 550 prayer experience before Leaks multipliers without requiring Liberation Wine. You will receive 1 shard per 4 experience while harvesting from your crops, and you will receive more shards for higher tier bones and ashes, roughly equal to the bone shards equivalent for that tier of item. Okay. This is a runecrafting and prayer solve. Prayer arguably doesn't need to be difficult this year. If you go transmutation, you can get the best bones. If you go to the Wildy, you will have the Chaos Altar, and you will also have lava dragons. You could argue that endlessly harvesting bone shards is decent for prayer. I'm not sure how much experience per hour that is, but I think prayer will be easy enough to get to at least 99. Runecrafting, on the other hand, is terrible this year. Without Banker's Note, it's pretty damn bad. You don't have total recall available to you. You might have something like a agility teleport, like the Map of Alacrity from tier 3, but that will put you close to some altars. You will have Guardians of the Rift in the desert, I think, and the Zaya goers will have the library. But I don't really think that these are solves. I remember vividly, I might add, I remember doing runecrafting with total recall, and it's just not chill to train. Even if you can get like 3 million experience per hour, it's like high APM, you have to pay attention, and you would have to do it for 3 to 4 hours to get to 99. It is not chill, so know what you're signing up for by skipping Soul Harvest. Husky, Jagex's Jmod Husky, mentioned that soul harvesting runecrafting is over 100 mil experience per hour, but you would need to get the shards first. So I think soul harvest is a relatively easy 200 mil for runecrafting, and it's very easy to get prayer up to at least 50 mil as well, most likely. The argument against soul harvest would be that runecrafting is just one skill, but we will be peeling down the arguments, and we will be doing that right now. If you pit these 3 relics against one another, the main thing is, of course, the skill solves, but the skill solves are not that equal. And the reason why I'm saying this, or what I mean, is runecrafting is way worse to train than thieving and farming and herblore, right? So we will be looking at the points instead of the skill solves instead. So I'm starting with Nature's Accord. I will do the other 2 relics as well. I'm assuming herblore is mostly solved because of either Forager, your Butler, or even PVM drops if you just get herbs. And then with Mastering Mixology, you can probably get your herb lore up to 99, I would argue. Then Nature's Accord, this relic will not get you to 50 mil herb lore for free, right? 99 is doable without the relic, especially if you go Woodsman and or Transmutation. So I'm kind of leaving herb lore for what it is, if that makes sense. Then without Nature's Accord, you will likely leave about 600 points on the table. That's the 25 mil, 35 mil, and the 50 mil farming tasks. And that is with Zeya. So without Zeya, maybe it's not even 600 points that you're leaving on the table, right? Nature's Accord is also likely to be a 100 mil / 200 mil solve with Zeya. So that is basically, I would argue, around 600 points that you're leaving on the table if you don't go Nature's Accord. And that's just purely farming experience. And that, of course, ties into Zeya. So keep that in mind. And then for the 100 mil and the 200 mil solve, there are other tier relics that can solve the 100 mil and 200 mil as well. So if you're like hell bent on going Zeya with Nature's Accord, don't be. At least not for the 100 mil and the 200 mil. Right? Then Larcenist. I would argue 99 Thieving is doable. That is not the reason to take Larcenist. Larcenist does give you a very easy 50 million Thieving experience though. So I would argue that without Larcenist, you likely leave 600 points on the table. So that's the 25 mil, 35 mil, and the 50 mil task. If we get these same tasks, by the way, in League 6, I haven't mentioned that. I'm not sure if they're going to change it, but still. So if you take a look at Nature's Accord, I said it was 600 points. Larcenist is also 600 points. So I think it's kind of similar. Larcenist does solve 100 mil and 200 mil in Tyrannuin and Mori, I would argue. Other regions, maybe not. Maybe they do, maybe not. It depends on how much you want to AFK. But Tyrannuin and Mori with Larcenist are free 200 mil, I'm pretty sure. Right? Then Soul Harvest. The other relics like Transmute can solve Prayer. That said, 99 Prayer, 25 mil, 35 mil, and 50 mil Prayer, those tasks together are 800 points. And you will have to ask yourself, let's say you're not going Wilderness, so you don't have a Chaos Altar. Are you going to go to 50 million Prayer? That's a question. I'm not saying you will or won't, but it's a question you need to ask yourself. Then Runecrafting. It's probably going to be awful to train without Soul Harvest, and even getting like 77 or 90 might be a pain in the ass. I'm just saying. If you think like, oh, I can do Blood Runes, yeah, you have to get there first, right? So assuming you will not get 99 Runecrafting without Soul Harvest, not picking Soul Harvest might cost you 800 points, right? This relic is also likely to be a free 100 mil, 200 mil. And what I'm doing is I'm basically arguing that Soul Harvest is 800 points versus the Nature's Accord and the Larcenist 600 points. And then I'm also arguing that, let's say, 25 mil, 35 mil, and 50 million Prayer is free with Soul Harvest, and you may not be getting those tasks without Soul Harvest. And what I'm saying is, basically, if you take a look at the bottom of this sheet, you're pitting teleports and potions, assuming you don't go tier 2 Forager, you're pitting that against 10x pickpocketing loot, against arguably an extra 800 points from tasks. I think that is, if you strip down this tier, the choice that you have to make. I think that is the true choice. It's not about solving the skills, it's about looking at the tasks and looking at how many points you can grab, right? Going back to the top, obviously the verdict is you'll have to check your area to see if you have solves. If you are Tyrannuin, you basically have to take Larcenist. I think you are throwing if you don't, and that's only because smithing and crafting is solved with Larcenist in Tyrannuin, so keep that in mind. On points alone, I would say go Soul Harvest. That's because it gives points more easily. And I think Runecrafting is a bitch to train. And even though Prayer has quote-unquote solves, these solves may not be a free 50 mil. And like putting all of that together, I think this is how you would strip down and look at this relic pick, this tier, right? I hope everything made sense. And thank you for watching. Bye bye.